So we'll start off with the morale tests, and just as we did last turn, because they're morale 6 and there are no other factors, they can't lose the morale test. So we'll just dispense with that one over there, and we'll dispense with that one there as well. There we go. Okay, they can't fail a morale test. These are musketeers. They have a morale of 5, and there are no other factors as far as I can tell. So let's roll up for them, for the musketeers. And they rolled a 3, so they're fine. Let's roll for the French here. They have morale of 5. I don't see any other factors involved there. They're fine. They rolled a 3. Okay. We've got the French down here. They are morale 6. And I can't see any negative factors on them. No, so that means they passed the test. Okay. These chaps, light cavalry, Grouchy's, light cavalry, La Salle, morale 5, so they could fail the test if they roll a 6. Let's see what happens. They roll a 5, they're okay. Right, so everybody passed their morale test. Okay, so we might as well keep rolling. We go on to combat. What the heck, let's start down here. Got one Russian gun here. Firing, and let's see, so they're hitting on a 4, 5 or a 6. If they fire at yes, if they fire at the cavalry, they can choose to make saving throws by moving 6 inches away from the enemy. I think they're going to fire at the infantry. Okay, they're going to fire at the infantry. Do I want that to happen? Or would I be rather... Yeah, I think I do. Okay. They're going to fire at the infantry, and they've missed. Okay. And desultory fire. Right, hopefully a bit more thump over here. 2, they're firing at the infantry, hitting on 4, 5 or 6. Let's see what they can do. And nothing. Right. It's all that snow it is. Remember, it's snowing. Right. They, let's see, they've got 1. So they're going to be hitting on a 4, 5 or a 6, as we know. So there we go. Let's have them fire at the unit that's already taken a casualty. Let's keep pounding on them. Good Lord, another miss. Pretty bloodless. They're going to fire. They're firing at close range, excuse me, at the grenadiers there on the corner. Good Lord, another miss. Completely bloodless so far. And then we got 2 shots. This is not close range, so we're only hitting on 6s, firing at the same grenadier unit. And nothing. So nobody failed their morale test, and nobody hit anything. Well, you do get those turns sometimes in in a war game. As I say, it's probably there's a lot of snow coming down, and can't see anything worth a damn, and a lot of muskets failing to fire and all that sort of thing. And I've been there before. Tell you more about that some other time. Okay, so that's the end of the Russian turn then. I don't really think this... I always say, I'll do the paperwork, but nobody got hit. So there's no paperwork to do, is there? I think it's straight on to the French 4th turn, in which, of course, they get another division, just like this one here, remember. That division can come on anywhere here along the southeast table edge. They're going to have 2 top-rate morale 6 infantry units and a unit of artillery coming on. And so, of course, yes, they could do something original and sort of show up down here, or they could start here and head for the gap. As I say, they can't charge them in the flank, but they can. They can certainly charge them. Yeah, I suppose they could be charged by as we know, that yes, of course, they could be charged by the cavalry, but they could also be charged by the infantry. Let's see, we go up that way. I don't know if by some trickery the French could they actually put 3 units against them? Like 2 units of infantry just go straight up here, one hitting about there, one hitting about there, but that doesn't count as a flank because the angle is too severe. It's got to be less than 45 degrees, if I remember correctly. And then the cavalry charge forward and hit them sort of there. My goodness me. Then that would mean that they would almost certainly, depending on the amount of snow that's falling, of course, but they would almost certainly, almost certainly lose the melee, let's put it that way. They might be destroyed outright. That's a compelling idea for the French commander to mull over, to have a little think about, so to speak, you know. Okay, well, let's press on. Right, so here we are on turn 4, which is, 11 o'clock in the morning. And let me just check that. 8, 9, yeah, it is. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. And here we are zoomed out so we can see the entire battlefield. We've, as usual, we've done, it's a French turn, so we've done everything, including the movement, and then we've stopped when we're ready to do morale. And then on into combat. Right, let's zoom in a bit. Okay. And get the old pointer going. Do I want to use that one? No, I think I'll use this one. Where's my pipe? There's my pipe. Good old pipe. Right, so as usual, nothing much has happened all the way down there. On the extreme French left. They're waiting for developments to set in here, basically, now that the French have got some decent artillery deployed. Okay. Let's see. Movement-wise, no, there's been no movement down here or down here. Nothing there. They're out of command. I've marked them as out of command. I'm using it as an out of command marker now. They're still unrallied routers. Okay. These chaps didn't move. They didn't move. They've become stationary. That's right. But we had down here, we had Davout, there's Davout himself, with his light cavalry unit there, and also his core artillery. They've moved forward. Their light cavalry are back here because they're trying to stay out of the way of any retreat coming from them, the infantry here, or the cavalry here. Of course, if they had to retreat, yes, they'd be in the way, but they're probably going to move before anything happens to them. They're basically trying to get forward to be able to get involved quickly if the opportunity arises. And down here, we can see that one of Friant's brigades, which is to say Locher, has charged the artillery. The artillery is not stationary, so they thought that might be a nice idea. It does mean that they're going to get fire from the artillery, they're just the one, but also from the grenadiers here, who are not stationary, so they've got 3 dice because they have their dedicated guns. The excitable light cavalry have charged the returning... who are they? Let's see here. St. Petersburg Grenadiers. So they've charged them, and they're being accompanied by the newly arrived division of Morande. So we got Donnier, his division, has gone straight into the Grenadiers. So the Grenadiers, as we can see, are being attacked by the light cavalry and the infantry. And then we've got the other brigade of Morande, which is, let's see, Brouade. Apologies for the pronunciation, of course. But anyway, they've gone straight ahead to hit these chaps. Now, they're not hitting them in the flank, remember, and they will contribute all their melee dice as if they were facing this way, no problem. The reason they did that was because they thought it was an opportunity to hit a unit which doesn't have dedicated guns and is not stationary. So if the French get a chance to fight even at even odds, as far as I can see, they've got to take that opportunity and get stuck in. Or at least that's the conclusion that was arrived at by the French commander, who I know very well. Even to the point of risking this artillery here, which is now in an extremely vulnerable position. But that was wheeled up and unlimbered so that they would be able to get one close-range shot at these chaps here to see if something could be done. Right. Then we've got, so morale test-wise, they're in a melee, so they're testing. They're in a melee, they're testing. They're in a melee, they're testing. Same here. And then over here, they're in close range of the enemy, okay. They're being meleeed, they're being meleeed, they're being meleeed. Okay. No close range factor here. The range is okay, but as I say, I adjudicated that I might be wrong, but I said that they not only have to be in close range, they have to be in arc of fire, which they are, but they also have to be able to be fired upon, which, again, may be a contentious point, and they clearly can't be because there's no fire lane going down there. It's blocked by them. So they couldn't be fired on by them, so I'm not making them take a morale test. Further down here, they're testing. It's the usual thing. They're testing because of those guns. These are testing because of the French guns. They're testing because of the French guns. And, of course, as usual, we're going to have some situations where they can't fail the test. So we will just... I still want to put the die there to remind me to go through the sort of logic of determining whether they can, in fact, get off scot-free. It's a dangerous thing to just start saying, oh, well, they're grenadiers. They're going to pass, so I won't even bother thinking about it. That can be a dangerous thing. So let's do, next up, let's do the morale tests. All right. Well, as near as I can see, we do have some repeat procedures here. Once again, there's nothing dragging their morale down. So there we go. We're going to get rid of that one. Yep. And then here, I would say the same applies. Their morale 6, so they can't fail. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, these chaps, on the other hand, are musketeers, so they're morale 5. So let's roll them and see what we get. And they're fine. And then we've got the French here, who are morale 5. You don't see them as having any other factors to worry about. So let's roll them up. 3, okay, they've passed. Let's carry this lot down there. Right, there we go. Okay, so this is rather important down here, of course, because we've got some melees developing. And, of course, it's a huge difference if you enter the melee disordered. Okay? I don't think there's any particular sequence I want to prefer to do this in. So, yes, let's just go through. Okay, so down here... These chaps are testing because they're in melee. There are no special circumstances that I can see. So, right. So let's test them. Well, they're morale... No, they're morale 6, aren't they? Yes, of course they are. They're morale 6. All of Davu's chaps. So that's like those. They're all morale 6 infantry. So they just passed their test as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Set that one aside. Come along. There we go. Down here. What do we got? There's a melee. There's a melee here. Guns over there. I think I don't see anything there, so they're going to pass their test as well. Here, the cavalry are morale 5. I don't see any special circumstances for them. There will be special circumstances for them because they get a -1 because they're meleeing unlimited artillery, and they get a -1 because they are being attacked by cavalry, and they are not cavalry secure. Right. So we're rolling now for the cavalry. Let's keep track of what we're doing. And the cavalry have become disordered. Well, yeah, look at that, though. Let's just check that. Let's see. We don't get a +1 for anything, do we? Meleeing. Yeah, it's not like they get a +1 because they're meleeing non-secure infantry. The non-secure infantry get a -1. They'll get the -1. So they rolled 6, so they failed their morale test. Okay, there's Friant down here, Loche's brigade, and yeah, as we said, they get a -1 because they are meleeing deployed artillery from the front. So they have a morale of 5. And they failed as well. Things are not going well for the French at the moment in this particular hour of battle. Right, let's get our disordered marker. And there it is. There's a come along. There's our disordered marker. Right, so they're disordered. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Right. Okay, and then we have... let's see, we're still doing morale tests, aren't we? Right, okay. These chaps here... testing because they're within close range of the enemy who could indeed fire upon them. So let's roll for their morale. They've got a morale of 5. And, ooh, a lot of 6s coming up. Well, there's something good for the French there. Okay, so let's see. They are disordered. Right. Okay. These chaps here are rather a crucial one now. They're not being meleeed in the flank or anything like that, so I don't see anything special there. They rolled a 4, so they're fine. Okay. These chaps here are, they're not cavalry secure, so they're going to get a -1 on their morale. So if they roll a 6, they will fail, which they did not. Okay. And then these chaps here, just a normal morale test as far as I can tell. Their morale 5, and they passed their test. Okay, so we've done all the morale tests. Okay, so the attacker, who's the, that is to say, the phasing player, as it were, is the French at the moment. So they get to pick the order in which they do things. So I think we're going to start off with this lot, that unit and that unit. So they get to hit on a 4, 5, 6 because they're close range, and they will of course be hitting on 6s, and they will be hitting on 6s as well. Okay, so we'll sort out that melee. Let's roll up first of all for the artillery. 4, 5, 6. Okay, they've got 1 hit on the Russians. There we go. And then we've got the let's see, Morons Brourad brigade here. See what they can do. And ooh, they've got a hit, so that's 2 hits. Okay, and there are no saving throw situations there. Let's put those out of the way. Okay, and then fighting back. So they took 2 hits. The Russians did. It's fighting back. Whoops. There we go. Q. Let's see. How does that work? Yeah, because it's a melee. We're doing a melee here, aren't we? And when you do the melee, you do the shooting at the same time. Them shooting at them is going to be a different thing, isn't it? Oh, wait a minute. No, they can only fire if they're shot at or if they're in close range. Let me check that. No, they're not within close range, so they don't get to fire. Okay. So, Russians meleeing them. Here we go. Going to be hitting on 6s, no other adjustments. And, ooh, interesting development. No hits. So, of course, that means the Russians lost that melee. And they're going to have to retire after taking 2 hits. So they're going to be disordered. Let's do that. Mark disorder. And we still got to take their 2 hits from them. Let's do that. And there we have it. It's all happening down here, I'll tell you. So there we go. They were forced to retreat, of course. They've taken their 2 hits. They're disordered. And In so doing, within the first half of their move, they passed through an already disordered unit, which is to say them. So they took them with them. Under the rules, that's what they do. If the unit is already disordered, they all get shuffled along together back there. And they passed through that, which was a non-disordered unit. So it became disordered and stayed where it was. So they've been shoved back to there. And are the French going to... is this French unit there that was in that melee going to occupy that position? No, it isn't, because I think it looks too exposed. It looks very, very exposed. So the idea is they just can't do that, as far as I'm concerned. So pressing on, rather the French commander, my good friend. So pressing on then, very exciting melee about to happen here. Now, of course, we must remember that we've also got these chaps are firing, and they're stationary, but they are, I can't remember if they are actually, doesn't look like close range. No, it's not close range, for sure. It's not close range. So that's some relief there. Right, so they'll be hitting on sixes. They'll be hitting on sixes. Yes, they're shocked, but they didn't charge. Oh, they're not shocked. They're the shock ones anyway, right? Everybody's hitting on sixes there. And these chaps down here be hitting on sixes, but you have to remember that they are disordered, and any hits from them will get saving throws because they're disordered. Right, so let's roll that lot up then. Let's see. So we've got all this lot. Well, no, wait a minute. Their dice have to be split, as near as I understand it, between those two. Whereas those dice are firing at them. So let's do them first then. Okay, so we're hitting on sixes. Here go the Russians. And they've got a 6. Okay, so they've got one hit on them. We'll do that. Okay. And then, let's see. These chaps have to divide, it says, as evenly as possible in the rules. Between the enemy. I'm going to use a bit of logic here and say that because they're mainly facing the cavalry, I'm going to say 3 of those dice are going to go against the cavalry and 2 of them are going to go against those chaps there. So here we go. There's 2 against the French infantry, and we have nothing there. And then we've got 3 against the French cavalry. And we have 2 6s. That's 2 hits, and I'm pretty sure that cavalry unit is of a strength of 2, which will almost certainly mean, right, that's it, they've destroyed them. Okay, so they got 1 hit on them, they got 2 hits on them, so in the melee in total, they scored 3 hits. Yes, okay. Right, here's the infantry going in against the grenadiers. Okay, they've got 4, they're hitting on 6s. There we go. And they've got 2 hits. Okay, that's a good start. They've got 2 hits against the grenadiers. Yep. Then the cavalry going in, and these are the ones that get saving throws. So, there we are. Looking for 6s, of course. And there are none. Right, so the French lose the melee. Yeah, the Russians have scored 3 hits. The French have scored 2 hits. Okay, so let's sort that out. Right, this is what we ended up with. I made a bit of a mistake when I was adjudicating this. Not that you saw it on camera, but I'll explain. First thing that happened was that, yes, the light cavalry were... eliminated because they took 2 hits. That was enough. They were eliminated, so they're gone. Okay, that means now that Grouchy has an exhausted. No, wait a minute. Does he? Yeah, he has an exhausted division, and we'll see if he's going to collapse yet. When he's with a unit and or near a unit, where the commander's near a unit and it is eliminated, he can teleport to another unit in his division, and that's what Grouchy has done. He's down here, and I've removed the out of command. They're still out of command right now, technically, but I've removed that marker to remind me I suppose I should put it back because command has not really been tested for. I'd be getting out of sequence if I did that. So they're still out of command, even though he's come back there, and we'll put them back into command later. I've marked him with a marker to show that he's got an exhausted division. Okay, half of it's been wiped out. So, you know, there we go. All very tragic. Lying here in the field, you see. And then you see, because I said, oh, they've lost the melee, the French have lost the melee. And then I did the calculation. This is the flaw in my system that I have here. I don't have on the labels, I don't have the strength of the unit. And I'll have to find a way of squeezing that on there, because the thing is, with the St. Petersburg chaps that were here, the grenadiers, they already had one hit. They took 2 more hits. That completely wiped them out. And if you get completely wiped out, you can't win a melee, regardless of what else happens. So they didn't count as winning the melee, because initially I thought they won the melee, and that would mean that these chaps here had to retreat. That would mean they would have gone off the table, as discussed before. It's dangerous for the French to be operating in this way, close to the edge of the world. They would have gone off, which should have been a massive blow. Of course, I think it would have, pretty sure it would have exhausted Muron, is exactly Muron. Division here, but no, they didn't lose the melee because they wiped them out. Anyway, okay, so they took a hit, and what else have we got? So there've been, I think there are 6 hits so far. There are 6 hits on Osterman Tolstoy's corps/division. Right. Okay, what do we got? And that's right. And they decided that they would not advance. They decided that they would not advance. They don't like the idea of that. Okay, so they're staying there. So we've still got some combat to resolve. Right, so let's get that done. Okay, so we've got over here then, we've got close range, obviously from these chaps, but they're not stationary, so they've got 1 die. These chaps here, they're not stationary, they're firing, so they've got 3 dice. Because of the dedicated guns. And then we've got these chaps here. Sorry, they're not firing, they're meleeing. Right. These chaps here. Excuse me. Meleeing, yes, but unfortunately they're disordered. You've got a bad feeling for them. They're disordered, and so therefore the enemy is going to get saving throws. Right. Okay, so they would hit on a 4, 5, or a 6, so let's roll them up first. That's the Russian artillery meleeing with the French. And they've missed on that one. Okay, French get a break there. Okay, and we have this is fire coming in from the Pavlov grenadiers, firing on the on Friant's Locher brigade. Okay. And, ooh, they've got 2 6s there. They've got 2 hits on Locher. And see, this is the flaw in my system because they've already got 1 hit. If it's a strength 3 unit, they're dead. Okay, so we shall see in a minute when I look them up. Okay, firing back, or rather meleeing back at the artillery. And, oh my gosh, they haven't managed a single hit. No, they have not. Okay, never mind disorder or anything like that. Right. Okay. Actually, I think, isn't it in melee they get, if they're disordered, they think they get, maybe they should have rolled half that many dice or something like that. I can't remember. Let's press on. We'll deal with that when we have to. Which is probably, yeah, not in this turn. Right, we'll sort it out. But anyway, let me look up Friant Locher. All right, well, bad news for the French over here because, let's see, they were already disordered. They took 2 hits, but they were disordered and they lost the melee, so that meant that they were routed. So they routed away from the enemy and they routed off the edge of the world. They are gone. They in the first half of their move, they moved through the cavalry here, so the cavalry there is disordered. So of course that means that half of, more than half, because he lost the artillery earlier, more than half of Friant's brigade is gone. The brigade is exhausted. He's been marked there as exhausted. Let's see here. Yeah, so not so good for the French there, that's for sure. And let's press on and see if we can wrap up this turn. Okay. Okay, so over here, what have we got? We got a lot of artillery firing. It's all stationary. We got 2 units that are close range. Yeah, let's see here. Okay, so we'll start off. We'll have these two. There we go. Whoops. Take care of that. This unit here firing there at close range. So we'll be hitting on 4, 5, 6. And we go 1 hit. Okay, so we'll be marking that hit there on the grenadiers. Okay, and then we've got same sort of thing here, firing at the grenadiers on the edge there, the edge of the hill. And, ooh, 2 hits. Ooh, right. That's getting a bit tasty. Okay, 2 hits there. And then finally, this is not close range. Fire coming from these chaps here, firing at the same unit. So hitting on 6s. And we got nothing. Let's do that. Right, so this is where we ended up at the end of French turn 4, 11 a.m. Let's take a look. So last thing we were doing was the Russians. That's right over there. We've marked the Russian hits here. And this unit here, they're both strength 4 units. So this unit here has taken 2 hits. It can take 2 more. What is that? Kaposk. And then this one here, Tau, looks like Taurid. Odd sort of a Russian word. Yes. Probably something to do with the spelling. But anyway, they've taken, the grenadiers there, they've taken 3 hits. So they've only got 1 left. So they're on their last legs there. Okay, so things are definitely getting loosened up here for the French. They keep pressing. Unless something changes significantly, just blasting away with the artillery, they're going to be forming a bit of a hole here. Now, of course, the Russians have got back here, they've got a whole reserve division back here. But the problem there is, as is massively the case for the Russians in this battle, the problem is command, because they've only got the 1 commander right there. So, in other words, if we wanted to take some of these troops and put them over here, some of these troops and put them over here, well, some of them are going to be out of command, which means that they can't, they can't move without getting disordered. They can't move towards the enemy. And if they get disordered, they can't recover from disorder. So it's a bad place to be. Yeah, so if the French start making holes in the Russian line, well, something serious might actually happen. So we'll see. Let's see, what else did we do? At the end, we did complete the turn. And at the end of the turn, of course, we had to check for, divisional morale collapse. And in both cases, it collapsed. The French rolled low, which is bad. So we've got Friant here. He now has a division which has collapsed. So I've marked him with a red marker there. Well, sort of whitish red, as we can see, like sort of fire or something like that. Now, I've done something here which I don't normally do. Whereas I'm indicating hits there with those little white balls, we can imagine that they're sort of like puffs of smoke or something like that. But normally I don't use color-coded stuff, but I have, I was using kind of smoke, as it were, color-coded smoke to put onto that unit there, and also this unit over here, which we'll get to in a second, to indicate that they were part of a division whose morale had collapsed. But the problem was, because I had that smoke on there, to me, it looks so much like a disordered unit, or it looks so much like a routed unit, I could see that I would easily just sort of say, well, that unit there is disordered, which actually it isn't. Even though the morale has collapsed, it's still not disordered. But it's important that it's there because it's got all sorts of restrictions on it. Can't move towards the enemy, this sort of thing. But also it takes its morale goes down by 1 point. So they were morale 6, they're going to be morale 5 now. They were morale 5, they're going to be morale 4. And there we go. So I suppose I'm just looking here. I need to also do that, do I not? Hang on a second. I do. I need to do that on the artillery there as well. No, they're corps troops. That's not. Yeah, the artillery that belonged to Friant's division has been lost. Right. Also, earlier, apologise, make a correction. Earlier, in terms of the movie, I suppose it was about 5 minutes ago, I kept saying, Friant's brigade has been exhausted. No, it's his division. Half his division has been lost, plus the artillery. More than half of his division has been lost, and he's still got one brigade left, which is old Grondeau. Right. In other interesting developments, just looking ahead to the next turn, the Russian turn for turn 4, 11 a.m. I've already spotted and marked over here. We've got a compelling tactical situation because I've used these markers to indicate out of command. Of course, we would actually test to see if they were in command, or we would check to see if they were in command in the Russian turn. But because I spotted it, I thought, no, I better mark that now. We can see there's their commander there, Osterman Tolstoy, and they're more than 400 yards away from him, so they're out of command. As is the case with these chaps over here, and that is going to be a bit of a problem for them. If you're out of command, you can't move towards the enemy, and you can't, I believe you can't recover from disorder. Let's see. Let's check that. You can't recover from disorder. You can't become stationary, and you can't limber or unlimber. So you're sort of frozen, basically. So they've got problems over there, because we've got the French here, was it Morand, his division here, and although they are close to the edge of the world, vulnerable in that sense, apart from that, they're in pretty darn good shape. They are facing a stationary heavy artillery unit, okay? Also, one of the things you always have to focus on with Volley and Bayonet is that any unit can move through any friendly unit, so just completely as it sees fit. So that means that, for example, the Russians in their turn could take both those cavalry units and charge, just go one there, or send both of them. It would fit. They could send both those units against one of the infantry brigades, for example, and the infantry are not stationary, of course, so it would be a good time to attack them. They're moving, okay? And, of course, if they lose the melee, boom, off the edge of the world they go. So it might even be, if the Russians want to take a chance, looks like a good opportunity. That would be probably be a pretty good move for them, looking at this. Rather than trying to rush infantry into the gap, just launch them at them and them at them. Sure, it would be nice if the guns could get involved somehow as well. I'm not sure if that can really work. We'll see. Just throw everything against them to try and see them off the edge of the world. And then, then things calm down a bit over here. Right now, there's a big gap. Nice, healthy division in play, and rather battered Russian troops back there. Okay. Right, so let's move on to the old Russian turn. And I know what the sharp-eyed observers out there have already spotted, which is to say, although it would be splendid to have the Russian cavalry, the dragoons and the hussars, give a hurrah and charge the French here and send them... No, it's not going to happen. Small little thing called being out of command. Yes, they belong to Osterman Tolstoy, and sadly, they're already marked as out of command, aren't they, from previous turn? Yes, we can see. So that's not going to happen, because they can't make a move towards a visible enemy, as in them. Can't do it. So old Osterman Tolstoy himself would be able to, in his movement phase, would be able to pop himself over here, or there, or whatever. He's probably going to go over here, I don't know. But that doesn't help, because the first thing you do is check command before movement. And they are out of command, so they aren't charging anyone. No, sir. Yes, so the Russians are going to have to come up with something else. Okay, here we are. It's turn 4, 11 a.m. and it's the end of the Russian turn up to the point at the end of movement. So they checked for command, and they certainly had forces that were out of command, as we established previously. Basically, these chaps here, the cavalry here, belonging to von der Osten. No, it's not. It's Osterman Tolstoy. The cavalry here, these chaps here, and these chaps all down here. Okay. So they couldn't do much, but pretty much had to stay put. And the danger, of course, was the French infantry with not much in front of them there. So the Russians have decided to cut cars with the devil, and they've launched some attacks. This unit of musketeers up here, which has taken a few hits, has launched itself down the hill at Friant's one remaining brigade down there. They do have battalion guns, so in the melee, instead of nobody's stationary, so in the melee, instead of having 4 dice, they've got 5. Okay, and the French have got 4. The French have slightly better morale, so if the Russians can keep their morale, pass their tests, in other words, they actually have the French at a disadvantage. So we shall see what happens there. And then the other attack that they made, the other charge that they made, was the tough chaps of the Pavlov grenadiers, the shock troops, the only shock troops on the battlefield. Well, infantry, look at it that way. They charged down the hill. They turned themselves here. They charged down the hill because they originally, the Russian commander gave them an order to charge. They were here, so he gave them an order to charge straight forward also into Friant. Now, that would almost certainly have, sort of defeated them, might have eliminated them possibly, but that's all very well, and that would have then completely eliminated Friant's division. But it was determined that a better solution to the situation, the problem is that it was difficult to get anything to stop these chaps from just sort of going forward. So Pavlov Grenadiers did a left face and charged down here at Moron, at, let's see, what is that, the brigade Donnier, these chaps. And let's see, of course, they've got a morale of 6. They've got a morale of 6 as well. But they, remember, are shock troops, and they have dedicated guns as well. So they got 5 dice, and I've included this large one here to remind me that they're shock troops, because that means if they're charging, they hit on a 5 or a 6. So their dice is twice as powerful. So therefore, they should win this melee here. Now, if they can do that, of course, they will become disordered, and they will have to retreat away from the enemy. So they would have to go straight through them, which would disorder them, and they would move straight through them and leave them disordered. That's right. If perchance they manage to rout them, which is probably, I think that's actually impossible, because they're not going to fail their morale test. They've got a morale of 6. So they can't become disordered first of all and then lose the combat, which would rout them. It might be possible that they could be completely eliminated because they've got such powerful dice against them. These are firing at them as well, and those. So they could be completely eliminated. Who knows? But anyway, if it's a bit, more sort of mediocre, more of a middling sort of a thing, they lose the melee. They're disordered. They have to retire. And they have to retire half the distance, half a normal move away from the enemy. So, of course, that's 800 yards. So if we measure that off, there's the central mass of the enemy there, the center, I would say. And if they're moving away from that, then, let's see, are they going to come anywhere near the edge of the table? Let's see if they moved. Yeah, you can argue that maybe they wouldn't. Maybe that back corner there could literally just about move to here, fitting onto the edge of the table. Okay. The only problem there is that would move them to there, and it would put them on top of their own artillery. And I'm still not entirely sure what's supposed to happen at that point. It would seem odd that you would move the artillery forward to make room for them to be there. So it's almost like if they couldn't fit there, then they would have to go further, and that would surely take them off the edge of the world, as it were. Well, anyway, we'll read up on that and we'll sort it out when it happens, or rather if it happens. But that would also, as we say, that would leave them disordered. Pavlovs could then advance forward and occupy this position if they wanted to. Okay, all well and good. Now, to protect their flank from Davu's corps light cavalry here, which is disordered, okay, the Cossacks of the cunning Cossacks have cunningly cantered. Can't think of another one with C. No, the cunning Cossacks have cunningly cantered forward to this position here. Changed formation, changed facing. Sorry, move down here. Changed facing, which they're allowed to do as skirmishers, and they put themselves there because these chaps here, if they wanted to charge their flank, which I'm sure they would love to do. Let's see, they would have to go through them. Now, the thing is, if they're going to recover from disorder before they charge, I don't know if is there a prohibition against that? Can you charge if you're already disordered? I'm not sure there's anything stopping you. Let's have a look. No, there's no prohibition for charging if you're disordered. So going back to what we were describing, if they want to charge them, they can do it as long as they don't recover from disorder first, because that would take them half a turn. If they recover from disorder first, that takes them half a turn. They move forward to the skirmishing cavalry. Then the skirmishing cavalry act as if they have immediately lost a melee. So they would have to they'd sort of move that way. Let's not get into the details. They'd have to move out of the way. They'd go that way somewhere. But they'd come into contact with them, and at that point they lose half their move or all their remaining move, whichever is less. Okay. By the time they get to there, half their move is 1,200 yards. By the time they get to there, they've got about 1,000 yards left, so they would lose all of that in making contact with them. So they would not be able to move any further. So the only way they can now charge them, because the skirmishers are here intervening, is if they charge them without recovering from disorder first. So that at least softens the blow there on the old Pavlovs. Russian commander is completely aware of the fact that these are, of course, they're a very valuable unit, and they're going to hopefully do some great damage over here. But they have been put into rather a vulnerable position because these chaps are here. And of course, the French have this artillery here as well, which isn't firing this turn because it doesn't have anything in close range. And oh dear, or does it? Let's measure that. Yes, 400 yards. It's going to be awfully close. I'm going to say, let's see. Oh God, it's like very much an edge case. No, I'm going to say no on that one. And it's a bit of a wide angle as well, so forget that. Yeah, if they had close range on them, they could have fired so-called counterattacking with their firing in the enemy's bound, as it were, phase. But they don't have that. But in the French turn, of course, they will be able to fire on them. Well, I don't know. They might not be able to because of the firing arc. We'll see. Okay, yeah, so they are not in the strongest position once this combat has completed. Right. Yes. Anyway, and then moving on. So we said we've got a melee here. Okay, so they have a slight advantage here as long as they don't blow it on the morale test. And then down here, nothing has changed. We've got usual morale tests because of the proximity of the enemy artillery and so forth. You'll notice that, for example, they're not firing because it's not the French turn and they're not within close range. And then also down here, they are not firing because they could fire at them. But remember, the way it works is if you fire at the enemy, if the enemy has been fired upon, the enemy is entitled to fire back at you. And they don't want that to happen. It's not a good idea. Okay, that's right. The other thing that happened, quite big, is that old, who was it? Kamensky's division. Kamensky's division they like to do their oblique or inclined movement, and they've moved down here. They've continued to go, forward and left, as it were, so towards the southeast. I suppose this is the southeast edge down here, of course. So they've carried on coming down here. They've stayed back so that they're not so close to them that they would get caught up in the first half of their retreat move if these troops here retreated that way. Okay. So they've moved forward down in this. So they're generally trying to get themselves into a position where they're sort of useful to be able to plug this gap when the time comes. And of course, again, massive command problems. There's Kamensky there, and brought everybody with him. He's got, including the artillery, all this lot down to there. Right. Cavalry there, of course, just stay where they were as the infantry walked through them. Let's see. And then finally down here, old Bagavut, his light cavalry that were about here, I think they were. I think they were about there. They have positioned themselves so that if they retreat, they're not going to get caught up in that. If they retreat, they won't get caught up in that either. But they positioned themselves, they basically aimed themselves at what is being anticipated as being a hole that may develop here. And we'll see what we get, because the idea there would be if French infantry at least moved to that position there where the hole is, for at least one turn, as it were, they would by definition they would not be stationary for one turn, and in that situation the light cavalry could charge them and that sort of thing. Right, and they are in command, and that's good. Right, so let's do the morale tests.